Hi there, welcome to this evening's show. We're so pleased to be here with you this evening, and we're talking about one of Mahmood's favourite subjects, and I'm pretty fond of it as well, which is money. We're talking money mindset. What is it? How does it affect us? Where does it come from? And more importantly, how can we actually improve our decision making to make sure that we have a business, not a hobby, that whatever our purpose, we're able to reinvest in that purpose and do really good stuff with our businesses and achieve the success we're after. So we're in for a good show, aren't we, Mahmood?
Absolutely, and I think that you hit the nail on the head there, Joe, in terms of money mindset. It's strange, actually, that over the years that in terms of we talk about personal mindset and personal attitudes here, but the topic of money, I think, is becoming more important. It is an important thing here. So I'm actually looking not just for the why, how does it occur, but actually the solutions we can put forward to try and fix and improve that money mindset.
And it's not just money for its own sake. You know, it's not about just being greedy, materialistic. It's actually about thinking what we can do with that and how we can not only sort of improve our own lifestyle, of course, and for those around us, but also for many social enterprises, community interest companies, and also private companies that want to contribute something really good and positive to the world. We can do so much more if we make sure that, you know, our cash flow is sound, our profits are good, and that we've got a healthy turnover. So you're in for a real treat watching tonight's show. If you're watching live, please let us know. Please let us know where you're watching from, and we'd love to hear from you. And any comments, any questions, we will take them live as well. Also, if you're watching on replay, a big welcome to you as well. Just do #replay, and Mahmood and I will answer all your questions and comments when we pick them up after the show. So we're in for a really good evening. So we'll start off with money mindset and what it is. So what do the words money mindset mean to you, Mahmood?
You can have the official definition. For me, it's about your attitude, your behaviour, how you interact and how you deal with the subject of money. Reasons we're going to explore in a moment. One thing I do want to pick up, Joe, is I think you hit the nail on the head there, is do not pursue the objective of just making money for money's sake in your business here, because I think you're going to get a wobbly business there. So money will come as a consequence of choosing the right purpose, the right goals here. For me, so I think it's just our attitudes, our behaviours about anything that involves money. That's what I would call a mindset. It's attitude, it's behaviour.
Yeah, and that attitude and behaviour we learn from different sources. You know, it's actually even from when we're really young, when we're growing up, we see the attitudes and beliefs and conversations and behaviours around money of the people around us, and we absorb all of that and we interpret that in different ways. So for some people, you know, actually talking about money is embarrassing, or maybe there's something a little bit sordid about money, and for others, completely comfortable, not a problem at all. And of course, others just love money, you know, genuinely love money. I mean, I think I'm sort of have a pretty in the middle approach to money. You know, my own money mindset is it's good to have because it means that we can keep doing great things, but I'm not about money for its own sake.
Yeah, I think that's a reasonable prospect. It's strange though, isn't it? It's those other people's attitudes. Those, I'm not saying in terms of a health point of view, those voices that we hear, those objections, those restrictions, it tends to be other people's voices, tends to be other people's opinions that we absorb over time. You know, whether it's our parents' attitude to money, whether it's the environments that we come from, whether it's seen that actually is quite unseemly. You know, actually it's quite a tacky subject, talk about money. I think lots of business owners, I think if they fast forward, you know, they're great having conversations about the value they do, how they change customers, what they do for customers and they do for their stakeholders. But actually somehow money seems to be quite a tacky, quite a grubby subject to come to cope with.
Yeah, and it really doesn't need to be, I think, and this is where as entrepreneurs, as business owners, it's about really updating our thinking around money, because money is the language, the energy of business, and it's one of the different languages and the different energies of business that there are. And you know, if we feel really comfortable with it, it means that we can make sure we're on top of things. It feels, you know, very much more sort of, you know, stressless, I guess, to run a business if we feel that we're really on it with money. And also those conversations with customers become a lot clearer. and we're more sustainable as a business as well, and we can reinvest and continue to grow, continue to employ people, continue to to work with suppliers and all of those good things. So if we think our money mindset isn't in a great place, maybe it's time for an upgrade. And there are some habits that are sort of telling habits, aren't there, in terms of where our money mindset is. So some of them are, for instance, maybe underselling or underpricing or discounting too early, or maybe, at the other end, just being a bit impulsive with spending and decision making and so on.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point there. I think it's either not introducing money into the conversation is certainly part of it. Feeling very reluctant and perhaps shying away from having money engendered in that conversation. Approach-wise, I think money is one of those things that, whether you want to call it a necessary evil, whether you call it a lubricant that keeps your business going, whether it's that commodity that we need to actually enjoy a lifestyle. And I find a lot of people shy away from that from the very beginning, and they introduce the topic probably far too late into a business conversation, far too late into a business negotiation. So in terms of, on that, Joe, in terms of, do you find any commonalities in terms of the people that tend to, what you might call it, have bad money habits there?
Yeah, I think the underlying thing there is that the money is connected with emotion in some way, and there's nothing wrong with that in itself, and emotions are there to help us. But where an emotion isn't helping us, then that's a really good reason to think about what we do and think about how we feel about things, and maybe start to rethink how we feel. So these emotions are, why would somebody sort of go in and undersell and not present themselves or their business with the value that they deserve and the value that they deliver? So there's an emotion there of maybe not wanting to be seen to be too big for their boots or too self-important, and maybe this sort of sense that, well, I've got to be modest. Maybe a sense of doubting self-worth as well. So there's all sorts of things, and whichever end of the scale it's at, whether it's sort of that end or the more impulsive end of spending, risking, the top end of how people spend money and treat money, then that's again is seeking excitement, it's seeking activity, it's seeking stimulation. So there's an emotional thing there. So I think what's really helpful is if we step back and actually think about our emotions around money, think about our habits, and really say, actually, what if we took the emotion out of this? What's the decision there that's to be made? What, from a rational point of view, is the value that we're adding, and so on, if that sort of makes sense.
Yeah, there's a couple of bits in there, and I think you're quite right. In terms of that emotional thing, certainly we've got some good comments coming up on here, which I want to share with the rest of the audience in a second or two. There is a very diverse range of emotions that are attached with money, and probably for me, I think people associate the money in terms of what they see, the extreme side of what people do with money. People associate money in terms of a connection back to their own self-worth and value. So let me just introduce some comments here. We've got some good comments coming on here, Joe, and I'm going to share these with you and what your thoughts. So let's go in chronological order. So I like that idea, quite right. And I think there's an old cliche, isn't there, about people know the cost of everything, the value of nothing. So value is a great element to introduce into a conversation there. Discounts we're going to introduce in a moment, Matthew. So that's a great comment there in terms of the value is better than discounts. What's your own thoughts? I know we're going to talk about it in a few moments, Joe, about when people talk about discounting and cost in the immediate part of the first part of their conversation.
Yeah, well, thank you for the comment, Mama. I think it's great to really delight and surprise customers, and and to really push the boat out from a customer service point of view. Absolutely. Make sure when we do that, it's actually adding things that customers genuinely value and that are obviously affordable in the package that we're offering. So that's fantastic. So yes, if you're in that negotiating position, then it's actually really good to have some things ready to talk about, which are actually could also do this, and could add that in as well. I think that's a really nice way forward. It's also even better if there's a value attributed to those other things that you're putting into the package to make that value increase. So this would normally cost X actually. Now our price for this is normally X, or the investment is normally X, but I can put this into the package for you so the customer really recognises that added value is being delivered there. But discounts, I find that it's so easy. People discount sometimes too early and too quickly, particularly when they're face to face with someone and they're really keen to get the deal. What about you, Mahmood? What's your view?
Yeah, well, I think it's weird because I think it depends on different industries, and there's a couple of comments in by Thurston I want to bring on in a moment. But I think first of all, it depends on the sector that you're in. So if I look at a commodity sector where there's no distinction between what we're offering, so typically things like, I don't know, staple products, bread, milk, whatever, where there's no distinctive difference between them, then discounting cost as being the motivation for buying is quite understandable, because there's no differentiation there. Everything's homogenous. And I think the conversation with discounting, fast moving goods, supermarkets, that's quite a natural. When you're dealing with something more intangible, when you're dealing with services, something that's got some distinctive characteristics, then discounts isn't the right language I would suggest that you use there. And I think it has sometimes can have quite a negative connotation to it there as well. And people react too quickly to rush to discount on something, perhaps not being confident in what they've got as an offer.
Yeah, I see sometimes people saying, well, actually, my normal price is this, but today I can do it for you for this, and this is the discount, without actually just stopping with the first price, seeing how it lands, because you never know. If you just stop there, the customer might say, well, that sounds fine, so not going in too early and too quickly, I think, is really good.
Now, I know we're not going to focus too much on the actual just pricing as a mechanism, because that's a conversation for another time. I believe last time I looked at it, there are about 16 to 20 different pricing approaches you can. But I think what you've said struck a chord with me is in terms of the language, the confidence that you adopt when you talk to a customer. We referred on previous weeks about businesses being about solving problems, transforming people's lives, and all the rest of it, and I think that comes into it. I'm just going to pause there for a moment, Joe, and I think there's a couple of some interesting points coming here.
Okay.
Now, this makes me think. This is from Thurston here. So it's saying some condemn money, therefore it flees from them. Money is not evil. People perhaps are evil. Money itself isn't. It's a symbolic exchange. It made me think. So thank you for that comment, Thurston. And it made me think about going back several centuries where barter was more of a way that people exchanged. They did services for each other and they went into barter. Money for me is probably the easiest way to say, this is what I've got on offer, this is what you need. And therefore money is just the mechanism by which that exchange is actually executed.
Yeah, I love that comment too, because you're right, it's not good or evil, it's their sort of emotions and attributes we impose on money. It's simply a way of transacting, of exchanging value. And I think if it's fair value for the customer, fair value for the service or the goods provider, then that's a win-win all around. And it's about getting to that place, I think, mentally in our mindset that we when we're pitching. I think as well around money, by thinking through and having, particularly service providers, having a price list, of how much stuff costs, whatever service it is. Even if you don't share that publicly or on your website, you've got it, and you know that when you go in, sort of what your parameters are around pricing, and then it's really holding yourself accountable to stick to that. But yeah, it's neither good nor bad. It's just an exchange. It goes round and round. It's no different from water in that respect to a point. We've had the same amount of water circulating the planet since dinosaurs were in existence. And I know that's a bit random, but it's stuff that goes around, gets used, and it's just a form of energy and currency, isn't it?
It is, and I suppose from that, if you take the water analogy, if you're in an area of the country or around the world where water is a scarcity for whatever reason, then it has a higher intrinsic value. If you're in an area where you're abundant with it, then obviously it has a lower intrinsic value. And that's quite a good parallel, I think, for businesses anyhow. If you've got something that's a solution that's quite unique, it tends to have a higher utility value. If you've got something that's quite, there's nobody can tell you apart from anybody else, then it tends to have a lower value attached to it.
That's why really being clear on, from a mindset point of view, being super clear on what is the value proposition. So that's the unique difference that your product or service, your business brings. And having pride in that and feeling that you can stand behind that, and therefore you feel good about what you're selling and what you're offering, and knowing, because you understand the customer, that you will be making a really positive difference to that customer's work or experience or whatever it is. Yeah,
I think there's three things that I would take from the conversation so far, and I'm going to introduce some more comments that we're getting at the moment. Is one, in no particular order, knowledge. So knowledge is power. So actually understanding your own business, understanding your own proposition, understanding also the costs of what you're doing helps sort of formulate some pricing. That comment about the price list, by the way, I think is really quite important, in the sense that if you commit yourself to a range of prices, you're going to get rid of tire kickers. So people that you're not going to engage with, people that are going to be a waste of your time and you're not for them. I think emotion comes into it as well. So how we converse and interact with people is quite important. So this is not just do step one and it's all immediately there. There's a lot of attributes come to this. So Joe, I'm just going to let you cogitate with that, and I'm going to come back to you in a moment. I'm just going to bring in some comments. Now, I'm going to bring you'll love this comment because it shows that you're correct. So another comment from Thurston: they believe they're not worth much. The worth of what they sell lowers. Joe, you're correct. So I think that's a very credible, excellent comment there. I like that a bit as well.
Yeah, very perceptive, Thurston. Thank you for the great comments. Because if we don't believe in what we're offering, if we don't believe that what we're doing is going to make a difference and really bring value, then how the heck can we expect anybody else to think the same and to value what we're doing? So it really does start with us, our belief in our products and service, our belief in ourselves, particularly for solopreneurs or consultants who are, or other services where it's yourself that you're selling. It's that belief in the difference that you make.
What's your view, Joe? Then we talked about habits. Okay, we talked about habits that we learn from a child. Typically, we take on other people's opinion. We may be in a household. There might be an educational element that, as we go through our personal lives, as we get into business, we've not really had much experience of dealing with money because we might be in jobs. We may not have had an issue with that. Do you think habits can be changed?
Habits can definitely be changed. There's all sorts of research that demonstrates that. Some habits can take a little bit longer to change than others, because the longer we've had the habit, obviously, the more work we need to put in. But being aware is the really it's the first stage of changing that habit. Because what I'm hoping that we'll do today, Mahmood, is that people will think about, well, am I doing some of these things that Mahmood and Joe are talking about? How does that apply to me? Because once you're aware, then you can start to change it. And with a will to change, it actually doesn't take that long. It just takes a bit of self-belief, a bit of prep, and then going out there and doing it and seeing the difference that it makes. Because, I think for anyone out there who's selling something that, and I think, actually, I'm not getting the value that my business merits, I'm not, then the first time you go out and you actually achieve the value that you're looking for, it feels amazing, and it just makes it easier to go the next time and the next and the next. And you'll need to try a few things. We have to sort of, maybe increase things a bit at a time so that we're feeling confident about asking for a bit more, and then it'll find its sort of level in its place, don't you think?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things that come from that. First of all, in terms of, I'm there with you, by the way, habits. Yeah, I think habits in the main can be adjusted. I think before you change anything, even if habits or your business, you've got to understand where you are at the moment. You've got to be aware of that. And it's like, I suppose, formulating a business growth plan. You've got to appreciate not only where you want to get to, but where you are at the moment, so you know how you can plan that route. Habits, I think, also, people sometimes set themselves too ambitious a target. They might say, well, I'm not actually very good at handling money. I'm not very good at talking to the customer about what I'm actually worth. I might be undervaluing myself. I might have what they call imposter syndrome. I don't actually know what things cost me, actually, so I don't actually know how much I should charge. I see many businesses, when they come up with pricing, they're asking an open group saying, what should I charge? What should I charge? And I'm thinking, that's a way you can get a benchmark, but you need to embrace it. And there's a great comment here that I'm just seeing here. Habits, you're going to do it a little bit at a time. Give yourself good wins, reinforce that. I'm just going to share a very practical tip here. Great comment there, Matthew. If you do think you've got money mindset that you want to improve, to strengthen, even little things like looking at your bank statement, looking at your bank balances is a good step forward here. Obviously, make sure, depending on what your bank balance is looking like, have a drink by the side. But that's a great habit to start breaking by even just looking at what's going on in your business.
Yeah, definitely. And I apologise. I think I called Matthew Mamunda because is it M&M Hair?
Yeah, that's a business that Matthew runs. So I think you were partly right. So I think Matthew will forgive you. He's a very forgiving gentleman. So
it's just as well. Thank you, Matthew, and apologies. I was just reading it as I saw it. Yeah. So I think with habits, it's also thinking about the compound effects, and doing a little bit at a time really does transform significantly as we go forward.
So I'm just going to share a couple more comments and we can, let's have a look here. So Thurston, thank you for all your comments here. So somebody could slap down $1 million for your patients. That would be lovely if they did do. Someone take that offer right away, not thinking. I think what's coming out of this, Joe, in terms of some of the comments we're hearing, what you're saying and what we're saying in this conversation here, is there's a lot of complex variables interacting here. And I think certainly knowledge and being aware of what's going on in your business with your customers, what your customers want, is really going to be quite powerful to actually shape, your mindset.
Yeah, and I loved Matthew's comment about looking at bank statements, because that's, there's no good burying your head in the sand. As business owners and entrepreneurs, we need to know where we stand so that we can make decisions to improve things, we can make plans to move forward. So not looking at the bank balance and just not opening things or whatever it is that are money related, what happens is it builds up into this sort of this monster in our minds that it doesn't need to be. And then when we finally have no choice but to go there, it can just feel so scary, and there's so much to do. And then often we look at it and we realise it's not as bad as we think it's going to be. But the thing is, if you look at things early, then you can make plans early, you can communicate with people who can help you early, you can address things early, you can nip things in the bud. So that's absolutely bang on, is to, even if there's no reason to look at your bank account, if you're a little bit averse to dealing with money, then I think that's a great tip. Just make yourself do it every day, 5 minutes, have a look at what's going on.
It's a strange sort of thing as well, Joe. I'm thinking, connecting back to the very first broadcast we did a few weeks ago here, in terms of, we said, formulating a business plan, you shouldn't keep it in your head. You need to dump those ideas out. Otherwise, your mind can play tricks. You can come up with different versions of the events. It's the same with money. Thinking about, you think you know what's going on in your business when you haven't seen the evidence of that, means it's very difficult to make decisions. It's very difficult to come up with options. It's very difficult to know which way you want to go in your sort of journey path to improve. And effectively, for me, actually embracing what's going on currently and in the future financially just gives you a whole range of options, and it reduces anxiety.
Yeah, I mean, so many people who we've worked with, Mahmood, haven't they? They've said, actually getting to grips with this stuff. In some ways, yes, it's hard work getting your head around it if you've not looked at it for a while, or if you're not used to doing it. But it's well worth the effort. The return on the investment of putting the effort in is a peace of mind.
Absolutely.
It's a sense of control, actually, even when cash might be a bit tight or whatever. So it definitely is worth doing. And I loved what you said earlier, Mahmood, about actually, do people know? Does every business owner know how much it costs them to produce whatever it is they're doing? because the number of entrepreneurs that we've worked with in general, who've actually not realised, that this is a cost and that has a cost, and when you add it all in, it comes to this. It can be quite surprising. So actually doing that work really, really does help.
Yeah, I think absolutely. And I think the comforting thing, and I think I want everyone to be aware that it is comforting, is numbers, money. Okay, it's basically there as a friend. It's there to support you in your business. It's not an alien concept. It's not something you should be scared of. You can. I love that idea that you were talking about earlier on about that monster being created in your head, because you can actually suddenly get overwhelmed by what you think is the reality. Most people that I know, when they actually take that deep breath and start to chip away and get some connection with money, some connection with numbers, actually they suddenly have that like Damascus moment and say, actually, it's not as bad as I thought it was. I think people sometimes equate money mindset with being good mathematically, being good numerically, and it's nothing to do with that ability as well.
Yeah. And the great thing about finance is, to be honest, it's adding up, taking away, counting and dividing. The stuff and even if we're not great at that, then there's loads of online tools that can do all of that stuff for us. It's really about sort of looking at the shape of it and what's going on, the movement, how much we're buying and how much we're selling, and what's left at the end, and have we got enough to pay for what's to come ahead. And I think the other thing is sometimes we've got to spend money to make it, of course. And it's just as important not to be too risk averse. In fact, I can remember, and I'm sure she won't thank me for saying this, but when she was younger, I taught my daughter and I were playing Monopoly, and we played for the first time, and she was quite young. And I was mortgaging everything and putting hotels and houses on, as you do. And she was trying to hold on to the cash, but of course she kept landing on my stuff, and she ran out of cash. So she's now, she gives me a really good thrashing at Monopoly. She was about 5 then, but it's that sort of principle, isn't it? I'm not saying we should, mortgage everything and do all of that, but sometimes we have got to invest. We've got to move forward, and we've got to try things in an affordable way, and know how much we've got to spend before we make that move, and what we can afford to lose, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I love that Monopoly analogy, because I would say also I could look at that in sense of your daughter, albeit at 5 years old, took a cash strategy, you took a debt strategy. The other consequence of that, depending on what your risk appetite is like, is that I haven't played Monopoly for years, by the way, so my apologies if I got it wrong, is that if you suddenly get a card that says you owe the bank X amount for having all these mortgages built up, then you could actually have a drain on your resources there. What comes out of all of this, Joe, I think with money, is people have got to think of it in terms of what I call a cause and effect relationship. So the money that's in your bank account, the money that you get by way of return, is as a consequence of the actions that you're taking. So everything in your business that you're doing, the direction you want to go to, the people that you deliver services to, the investments that you're making, the impact is felt financially. So the money is the consequence. The cause, the activities, is what you should be looking at. It's the two together that you need to, I would say, you need to connect.
Yeah, and in doing so, take the unhelpful emotion out of it and step back from it and look at the dynamics and look at that cause and effect, and see it with a bit more objectivity rather than too much emotional or self association with money. I think that's really important. And please don't anybody avoid, I'm sure you don't, but avoid talking about money and price with clients either, because I know that when I'm buying something, either personally or for my business, and when we buy stuff together, don't we, for the Business Growth Club, if something's really good, I'm thinking, oh, how much is it? I want to know how much it is. So actually, by being super clear on pricing, we're doing our customers a favour, and we're making it easier for ourselves, easier for the customer to do business with us, because sort of that bit, the affordability bit and the price bit, if we can get that out early with the right amount of value, then it means that the rest can sort of move forward without somebody thinking, how much is this going to actually cost me?
I think that's a great point, and I think also you've got to take into account the psychology of the party. So, if you're in a personal situation, you got friends, if you're doing something for them, you don't expect them to put their hands in their pocket and say, "Here's some money for helping me out." Personal relationships, that's a completely different type of conversation. But when you're in a business relationship, you've got a customer who's got an issue they want some help with. You've got a customer who's got a problem they want you to help fix. You've got a customer and a client they need you can help with some transformation. There's an expectation, or there should be certainly, that money is going to change hands at some point. They're not expecting realistically for you to do all that and not pay for it. And if anything, perversely, not charging enough for what you're doing actually demotes your offer to something that's of a lower value, and your clients actually might think, actually, that what you're charging me for what you're offering, it doesn't make sense, and actually, I actually think you've got an inferior product there.
Yeah, I've had I've got an experience today. So I emailed somebody. Actually, the email came back today, but I emailed somebody over the weekend and said, who'd done some work, and said, could you tweak this for me, please? Right, just a tweak thing. And they came back and said, yes, I'm really happy to do it. It came back today. Get it done by tomorrow. It'll cost £47 though, because there is some time involved. And my response back was, yes, I was expecting to pay you for it, but it was almost like they were assuming that, and had to pluck up some courage to actually ask me for the £47. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it's like making an apology for it. But the thing is though, Joe, I think in that, spot on. I think lots of people make apologies. I mean, I've been guilty of that myself.
Me too.
Clients come back and they say, we need this done. We always take judgments as business owners about, but you do a piece of work. And I think it's naturally to have the conversation at the beginning. It's about being upfront, being honest. Customers, I think, I know they appreciate honesty. They appreciate you being straight with them. I think what's probably less comfortable is if you do everything and suddenly the customer's not aware, and then suddenly a price comes out and a charge comes out. So, having those honest conversations, being upfront, being direct, and not being what I would call apologetic, for being a business.
With confidence and just, as expected, and that's just be straightforward, and that's absolutely fine. By the way, I was supportive. I did, send a really lovely note back and say, yes, of course, and there's no need to sort of explain it. Just let me know in advance and charge the money. It's all good. Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. I'm going to share a couple more comments. So we've got some really good comments coming here. So Thurston, I'm going to show you what this here. So I think we were talking earlier on about the money dynamic here. So 10% write off, save 30%, 60%. What I like in that is that, when you generate money in your business here, we know there are different demands for it. And it's that money mindset that says, some of that is going to be for me, some of that's going to be paying for this, some of that's going to go off to do good things here. So a great point. And Matthew, I think this is where we were talking about value. We were talking about, the price. I'm saying that I offer a really quality service. The analogies I normally make, Joe, and I know you've said these before, is you've got a restaurant, for example, that's offering a really deluxe experience, and it's £5 a head, and you think, no, there's got to be something dubious about what they're offering. Or maybe it's just the places I eat at, I don't know. But there's got to be a connection. There's got to be a common sense, I think, connection between the value and what customers consuming.
Yeah, definitely. So I think, in terms of tips around money, it's then thinking about what you've got today that you've acquired from other people's voices over time. That could be multiple different people's voices over time, and actually what serves you today, and are all those views necessarily the right views, particularly anything to do with that's the inner critic, and then get really clear on your numbers. Face up to numbers, make friends with numbers. You're brilliant at that. You're super brilliant helping people do that. So get friendly with them, have a look at them, keep on top of them, and then know what your cost structure is, and have your pricing structure ready, and just be really proud of what you do and your value proposition. And if you're not, then look at what needs to change. Really look at how you can build that. and position that so that you are, and then go and have some great conversations. So that the whole pricing thing, because I think that moment where we're talking about price, where we're sitting in front of a client, virtually or face to face, as we used to do a lot more in the older days, and then it's that moment, that critical moment where somebody says how much, you can look them in the eye and actually have that conversation. That's the moment of truth, when money mindset comes to the fore, for sure. Yeah, and just be really clear and upfront about it, and you'll help everybody, especially you.
It's weird, actually, that thing about conversations with customers, potential and otherwise, is that your body language. I'm going to share some great comments here from Matthew and Thurston will come on in a second. The moment you start backtracking, starting being hesitant, okay, it transmits that idea that actually you're not confident in what you're saying. And that comes across sometimes is that actually, are you trying to be a bit sneaky with your pricing here? Because it's that difference between not being arrogant with your pricing, but being confident. This is what it is. Not a hesitation, not a justification, not, well, it could be this, we could play around with it. As soon as you start doing that, your body language gives across negativity, and it actually might lose you the sale as opposed to gain that sale.
Yeah, I mean, customers want to have confidence in you, so they want to feel that you're being straightforward, that they can trust you. Trust is a super big thing. We're not selling to people, people are choosing to buy from us in this day and age, and trust is massive. So if you're saying something and you're, underlying, you're thinking something different, your body language is leaking, as they say, but there'll be a dissonance between what you're saying and how you're behaving, and that will be picked up for sure. And I think it's also about, just making sure we do ourselves justice in that situation, because actually people want to work with people who know that, that they can help and who know what they're doing. And again, that's a really key ingredient in trust as well, is that sort of professional credibility and self-belief without it being arrogant. It's got to be customer focused.
Absolutely. And I think also within that, in fact, I'm just going to pause there for a second, Joe. Let me just share before I lose all the comments here. So let's just go share some great points here. Yeah, absolutely. You need to be confident and have self-worth.
Yeah.
So and I think if you don't have belief in yourself, it's very difficult for others to have that belief in you. So a great comment there, Matthew. Matthew is on here, so I think agreed on that one. Yeah, value yourself first. Value yourself first, value your business, value what you've got to offer. What do you think, Joe? Would you agree with those sentiments?
I completely agree. Yeah, if you value what you do, have a healthy, sense of professional pride and understanding in what you do, but also be open to learning and listening, because that's part of it. And I think that's part of a really confident person, actually, that they can be open and they can really listen and take on different perspectives. But it's about going in there really feeling good about what you do and what you've got to offer, and identifying the reasons. If you don't feel that way, why are they, and what can you do about them? Yeah, Thurston, confidence and self-esteem are huge at the moment, absolutely. And I'd just to shout out there, because to any business owners and entrepreneurs, and spoken to a few over recent months who maybe have had to really rethink what they're doing, and had to change direction quite suddenly in something, a business that had been built up over a long time isn't there in the same way that it was before. But what I'd say, and I'm sure Mahmood you'll support, is that you created that business. You did build it up, and you can sort of move through and regain that confidence and go again. It's that sort of finding a way through, and you will. And I mention that because I know that a few people have spoken to us over recent weeks about that for sure.
Yeah. The way I would look at it, the worst case scenario, Joe, if your business has had to rebuild it, if you had to go off into a different direction, if you've had to pivot, if you suddenly think that's it, at worst, you are an apprentice with experience.
Yeah.
You've been through that learning cycle, and typically all startup businesses will go through, in my opinion, about 1.5 years, 2 years of learning how to be a business owner, learning how to make decisions that other people may have made for you, learning about the ups and downs of business, learning about things, getting things wrong. And it takes time to get that experience and you can't learn it from a book. You can't just, absorb it straight away. You've got to immerse yourself in there. So you've got all of that to bring to it. So even if it does look bleak, even if it does look, difficult, you've got a lot more to support you in that stage than you have for a brand new startup.
Absolutely, and it's the world that's changed, not the quality and value and skill and talent and hard work of the entrepreneur. And it might just need a period of adjustment to sort of rethink and go again. But all of those great qualities that built the business to be what it became, those are all still there for sure.
It takes on. I don't want to give the impression to anybody that this is so easy. This you can just click your fingers, it happens. I think recognise. Do you think there's something in your money mindset that you can improve? Do you think there's something in your money mindset that you want to change? I would say all of us can improve anything in what we do. Yeah. That's the first thing, being aware of it, and then actually thinking about where you can actually make those improvements here. And I think you put it correctly in the beginning about habits. Do it small bits at a time. Don't go for wholesale changes here, but you do get a good payoff. And don't. I think for me, it's don't beat yourself up over it too much. Okay, if you recognise the necessity to change, then change is within your grasp.
Yeah, and we're here to help, so we'd love to hear from you. If you've got any questions for us, so now or after the show, then we'd be delighted to hear from you and see how we can help. So, and thank you, Matthew. Once you change your mindset about money, your life will change. Yeah, and it's about putting money into perspective as well. We're here talking about money, and it is important. It does help a lot, and there are so many things that are as, if not more important, and lots of things that definitely are more important than money.
Yeah, absolutely. We're not saying it's the only thing, but it's an important ingredient in your business being here next week, being next year, paying yourself, giving you time to spend with your family, can continue to serve your customers. And I think you said at the very beginning, Joe, doesn't matter if it's charity, private enterprise, social enterprise, public sector, whatever, money is the thing, the engine oil that will keep your business going.
Yeah, and your definition of money success as an entrepreneur is your definition of success. Nobody else's. It's not about. I think the sooner we can all move away from comparisonitis and seeing what everybody else is doing on social, and these people that apparently have made millions from from 6 easy steps. And if you're not achieving that, please don't worry. Comparisonitis doesn't actually help. It's about you, where you want to be, your health and your happiness, as well as your wealth, and what that means to you personally.
Yeah, it's a nice blend of thing. Absolutely. I'm going to share this one because I think it's excellent. This is probably Thurston's most insightful comment of tonight. There we go. Let's go.
They're all very insightful as well. Yeah. Oh, thank you. Yes, thank
you. That's very kind of you, Thurston. Thank you very much for that. Thank you for your contribution tonight, Matthew. Thank you for your contribution. For those of you, as Joe said, if you're catching this on replay, what's the magic word? Is it #replay? Joe, they type in.
But we'll answer anyway, won't we?
Of course we will. Of course we will. So, Joe, what would you see as we know habits can be changed? We know money strengthening and improving your money mindset, it's got to be factored in there. What's the one takeaway, the one immediate thing people can do straight away to actually see a difference in their money mindset?
I think really be clear and confident about your value proposition. And if you're confident in that, then you'll be confident when you're delivering it. Your shoulders will be about head held high, and it will follow then that you can then start to think about what you're really worth. Are you charging that? How are you communicating price and money? And just really think about, habits, what influences those? Are they helping you, yes or no? And then, make a choice to move forward and do things that might be helping you even more.
Beautifully put. I don't think I've got much more to add to that, except I think the self-awareness. If we're truly honest, I think honesty with yourself and honesty with your team, if you've got a team of people that you're working with, is got to be the first thing. It's about recognising there's an issue that you want to address, and it's all for the good. It's for the benefit of everyone. And if you recognise what are the issues that you've got challenges with, there's loads of help out there. You know, don't be afraid of actually saying, can I learn, can I develop my own skills? Do I need to access from somebody else? But actually address it and don't let it drift.
Yeah. Yeah. And if anybody, look, is seriously, you know, worried about money and it's for your business and it's getting you down, then there is all sorts of help out there. And normally these things can be overcome in some shape or form, can't they, Mahmood? And as I'm sure many of you are aware, Mahmood's been doing an amazing job of keeping everybody up to date with the changing government support as well that's been coming out and what that means for business. So stay tuned into what Mahmood's been doing.
I believe you're doing some incredible stuff on the innovation front there, Joe, and I think that's a great combination. So it's a bit tacky. We talked about money mindset. Let's talk about business growth mindset. January 21, for those of you, by the way, we're launching our next iteration of the Business Growth Club. We had a first cohort of a group, 12, 13, I think we had on the first group.
Yeah.
Brilliant. We're not going to increase the group size too much. I think we're going to keep it at 25 to 30. If you're interested in finding out more, drop a DM, drop a comment in the comments box there as well. And I believe we're opening up the official entry into the family to share more information with you very shortly. But obviously you get more of me and Joe, which is got to be a good thing. Next week, what have we got next week, Joe?
So we've actually got a special guest next week, haven't we? If my dates are right, yes. So next week we have got the amazing Rachel from Nut and Noggin. And Nut and Noggin is this awesome shampoo bar. And yes, I do use it, but it's plastic free, it's vegan. And Rachel has started up this business from scratch and she's selling into some really cool clients. But I'm not going to steal any thunder. So we'll be talking about Rachel's journey, her hopes for the future, how she got from where she is now to where she wants to be, and also sharing some tips and recommendations and things to think about along the way. So I'm really looking forward to that. Yeah,
it's a fantastic story. It's a fantastic story. I mean, all our guests previously have had fantastic stories to share. Rachel's no exception. So I'm really looking forward to hearing what Rachel's got to share with us and the rest of the audience next week.
Yeah, super. Well, thank you very much for joining us. It's been awesome. I've loved spending another evening with you this week again, Mahmood. So thank you too.
My pleasure. And I'm just going to sign up with Matthew. Matthew, thank you very much indeed. That's very kind of you to say so. So, Joe, good night from me.
Good night from him. Is that right? Is that bad? I don't know.
So, folks, thanks very much indeed. We look forward to speaking to you guys next week, and we'll share the details about next week's show very shortly, if I can say that, with our wonderful guest, Rachel.
Fantastic. See you soon. See you next time. Bye.
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 Bye.